All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back. My name is Raquel de Hoyos, and I'm with you for the last part. Oh, sad. The last week of our four-part series talking about just kind of our brain health and how that relates to nutrition. And we've got a really great recipe. So, divas and dudes at home, I hope you check out this recipe and give it a try. Everyone here today, thanks for being here today. It's a beautiful sunny morning. It is technically still spring, right? Yes. Okay. So this is our spring asparagus salad that we're going to be making. For anyone who's a fan of asparagus, I found some really beautiful asparagus at the store yesterday, and it's been kind of hit or miss, but I always think of spring and asparagus because for many years when I worked in a restaurant, we had a farmer who would come from Eastern Washington, and right before, Easter, I think it was Easter and then Mother's Day, we would just get crates of just beautiful, delicious, fresh asparagus. And it was some of the sweetest. And you would see all variety of shape. It was typically the green asparagus, but like the stuff I found today is the really nice thick stalks, and so it's super sweet. I've already cooked that, so there's a couple parts of this recipe I've already done for us just for time's sake, like I normally do. But what I want to walk you through today is something kind of special. So this is not just an ordinary salad, greens, some tomatoes and olives and dressing. I have kind of learned along the way, in order to get people to eat anything green, you got to kind of jazz it up a little bit, right? And you can use any kind of vegetable as a base instead of a leafy green, although we've done some things like last time we did something with kale. But I wanted to show you a recipe for a salad that uses kind of an actual vegetable as the base. And so we're using asparagus today. So let me just show you really quickly what I did with that, because I just did that this morning. So I took the asparagus stalks and they were a little bit thicker, so I usually try to just blanch them, but these I cooked just because look how beautiful and thick they are. But I basically took a big pot of boiling water, salted it. You want to make sure you put a little salt in there just to kind of have that salt infused through the vegetable as it's cooking, right? But then I threw it into an ice bath. So I put this in the boiling water for they're kind of thick, so I think between 3 and 5 minutes. So they still have that beautiful green color. But then I had a bowl with ice water in the sink, and I popped them into that pretty quickly after I had them at the right consistency. A couple I had to check with a knife because they're so thick. Sometimes if you have the little skinnier ones, it's a little easier to just kind of break them and see if you basically want them kind of like al dente, like pasta, right? And so, yeah, just put them in some ice water and then popped them in the fridge so they're nice and chilled. You could also do this as a warm salad, which I love too. So either or, it's pretty versatile. With the asparagus, there is one in here I was going to show you, but I think it's at the bottom. Oh yeah, it's down here. So when you buy the asparagus, what you want to look for is the very tips. Sometimes you'll see them in a little bit of water just to kind of keep them moist so they don't dry out. But you want them to be nice and firm, and you don't want those tips to be completely dry. So next time you go to the store, I always look through them and just make sure that they're not like bone dry on the bottom, because then you'll start to see they have kind of like that withered skin look. Maybe even the tips are starting to brown, or they just get a little sticky. Like, don't buy those. But HEB came through and they had this beautiful asparagus. So this has already been cooked and it's chilled, so we'll enjoy that when we put everything together. The other thing that I did as well was I hard-boiled our eggs. And so does anybody know the time for how long you should let your eggs sit for perfect hard-boiled eggs?
10 minutes.
I love it. I heard 7, I heard 10, I heard 14. 12. It used to be, well, it's interesting. When I lived in Washington, it used to be 12. But when I moved to Texas, it is now 14 for me. So I don't know what that's all about, but I thought it was interesting. So now, something's different. But now what I do is I just put the eggs into a pot of cold water, put the lid on, put it on the stove, bring it up to a boil. Once it's boiling, I turn it off, but I leave it covered and I leave it on the burner. I set the timer for 14 minutes, and then I rinse them under cold water and I peel them. However, these I popped into the ice cold water from the asparagus, and so they were, I think these eggs are a little fresher too. And so they chipped a little bit as I was peeling them. I will have to send you guys, because I just saw something recently. He's a chef, cookbook author, kind of brilliant mad scientist, named Kenji Lopez Alt. He has several cookbooks out, and I love him. But he just recently posted something on his Instagram about the perfect hard-boiled egg. And there was something about the technique that was different that I had not ever heard. And I was like, I got to go back to that. Because I just thought anything like that is helpful, right? Because a lot of us, hard-boiled eggs for egg salad, summertime, we're making potato salad, you throw the eggs in there. Like, it's frustrating when you get like it's all peeling and it's not peeling right. Like, it's annoying.
Don't you put it in cold water after?
I did, but I find when you peel them warmer, they're easier to peel. Yeah. So I'll have to look up his tip, because I think it was a good one. It kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, I have not heard that one, but I can't remember it because my brain right now is not operating at 100%. But anyway, so we've cooked the asparagus, we've cooked the hard-boiled eggs. So what I want to show you today is how to make something called piccata, and then we'll make the dressing that goes with this. And then we'll put it all together. We'll give it a go, give it a try, and we'll wrap up the part 2 of the archetype diets. So we had started 2 weeks ago, I guess now, with, do you guys remember the 2 types that we discussed? One starts with an N. The nurturer was one, and then there was one who was you remember? Wears a cape? Wonder Woman, right. We all wear capes, right? So let's get started with the recipe, though, because I want to make sure that we have an opportunity, and I hope that this works out here. So we've got our pan. What I want to do first is, so piccata, if you haven't heard of what that is, or it's used in a couple different fashions, but this is a recipe that I picked up my years of cooking. And I really like it because, again, I want to build and add texture to this salad, right? It's not a green leafy salad. But piccata is often made, this is kind of like a Spanish recipe where you take some crusty bread. Like, you think about all the recipes that start with crusty bread, right? It's like people have this at home. They're like, what are we going to do with this leftover bread? So this bread, I actually did buy it last week for class. I popped it in the fridge, so it's even better now, because you don't really want to use fresh bread. I think when you fry up a piece of bread, you want it to be a little bit, dried out. So it's just a regular loaf of French bread, and we want to take 2 nice thick slices out of it, and we're going to fry it in just some olive oil. And this is going to be the base of this piccata, which is kind of like a pesto, but made from bread. So I'm going to put this here, and my apologies, guys. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to just fry this in a little bit of oil. I've got a 1/4 cup of olive oil. I'm sorry, my food processor is in the way, because we're going to need that in a minute to blend everything together. But basically you want to just, here, let me move this a second to the other side. Let's put this here for now. I've got a slightly smaller workspace here. So we just want to warm this just a tad. I always have to remember this thing goes up super high. You don't want to turn your oil up too high, because you don't want to burn this oil. But just bring it up, get it warm enough. And we're just going to fry the bread until it's nice and golden on each side. And basically this is going to be the base. We'll kind of crumble it up, pop it in the food processor, or if you wanted to, you could just chop it up if you don't have a food processor. But there's going to be a couple other ingredients that will go in there. Some of those include, we're going to do, I think it's 1/3 cup of almonds. Yes, 1/3 cup of just, raw, unsalted almonds. You could toast them if you wanted to, if you had a few minutes to do that. You could also, there's like smoked almonds. That would be really great if you could find some of those, but these are just raw almonds, which are really good for us. Okay. I don't want to let it soak up too much oil. That's not quite ready yet. Okay. Yes, so we're going to start with the bread once it's toasted. We're going to add almonds. We're also going to add a little bit of garlic, so 1 clove of garlic. And then we add some aromatics. So what I have today is we're going to use some fresh mint just to give it some really nice taste. It's going to smell great. And then we're going to use also some Italian parsley. You could use regular curly leaf parsley, but I like Italian parsley. And then the secret to this too is we're going to add the zest of a whole lemon. That really kind of brightens the flavor, but it's almost like a breadcrumb, but it has the fried bread in it. So, okay, let's give that a go. Oh, okay. I can leave the nuts out. Okay, you could do that. Or yeah, we could do a little portion. Let me mix it all and then take a little bit out. That's a great idea. Let's do that. It does kind of need the nuts, I think, but it'll still be delicious because it'll have all the flavors. So I'm going to pay attention to this because we don't want it to burn. But as you see here, you can hear it sizzling a little bit. And I just want it to be nice and toasted. And we're going to do each side. I love this burner because it is fast. But I am kind of see how it's starting to just brown around here on the edges. I know, right? That's breakfast time, just a little bit. And yeah, about 1/4 cup of oil. If you need to put a little bit in, we'll see how much it soaks up here in a minute because we're going to turn it and also toast the other side. Now, if you didn't want to do that, you could spray it lightly and put it under the broiler, stick it in your toaster oven. Just, you want some of that browning. See how we're getting that. Turn that over. No, the dressing's going to be totally separate. This is just kind of the breadcrumb, or what we call the piccata. Yeah, yeah. So this is looking good. It does, I know. I mean, I'm tempted to just like slather some butter on this and just have that for breakfast, right? So I always say, okay, start with 2 slices of bread, but you know, you'll have some leftover, so maybe use that for something else. So see, my oil is, I could probably use a little bit more in the pan. This one's looking pretty good, but I'm okay with this. If you need to add a little bit more, just don't let it get too hot. It's smoking a little bit, but that looks pretty good. This one needs, I'll just turn it over here. That looks pretty good though. Okay, I'm gonna turn it off and we'll just let that sit for a minute and let that cool. And then what I'm going to do, maybe if I can have Rosie give me a hand. I'm going to swap out Miss Rosie. I'll take 2. If I could just move this burner so I can bring in the food processor. And just be careful because it's hot. Just plug that guy. Yeah, you can just set it back there. Delicious bread. Thanks. Set this here for a second. And never reach over a hot pot, but we got limited spots here. Okay. Okay, here we go. So the next thing we're going to do, and see, that didn't take too long to do. But like I said, if you didn't want to do, you really do kind of need the fried bread. But if you didn't want to do that, you could easily just put that in the toaster or put it under the broiler. So that looks great. Okay. Okay, I need one more. Let me. Sorry. Sorry, folks at home. Maneuvering a little bit here. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is just make sure that this is on correctly. Got a blade. So I'm just going to tear this up. Oh God, that's so great. I could just eat it like that. Mouth is watering already. And this is, you know, something that I like these salads too, because it's like summertime, right? Like typically I would take a little paper towel if you didn't want the extra oil, but also remember, what kind of oil did we use today? Olive oil, right? And this is a good oil, and it wasn't that much. It was 1/4 cup, and it's 1/4 cup for this entire recipe. We will have a little bit in the dressing that we make in just a second here, but it's olive oil, right? So we're still kind of in the realm of, yes, it's okay. All right, so we're gonna do that, and then we're going to add our clove of garlic. Make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. Work clean, everybody, work clean, I always tell. Okay. And so I think you guys know, I hate peeling garlic. So what I'll do, this is my favorite kind though, if you can find this beautiful striped garlic, because the paper is a little thicker, so it doesn't get stuck to your hand so much. But I just kind of go down the middle with my knife and just pop out the garlic. A little easier that way. Some people smash it with their knife. I don't want to abuse my knife. I like it too much and it was expensive, so I don't do that. Or you can even take them off of the bulb and pop them in the microwave for a few seconds, like less than 10 seconds, and it warms up the peel so you can take that off easily. That's another trick I learned. But this isn't too bad. It's a little tricky to do with oily gloves, but we're getting there. So 1 clove of garlic, and then we're going to add in those nice fresh herbs. What do we have here? We've got 3 sprigs of fresh mint, and then a 1/2 cup of some chopped Italian parsley. Wow, this is just going to be the most difficult thing to do in this whole recipe. It's peeling the garlic. Okay. So 3 sprigs, these are pretty big, but I just love using fresh mint in recipes. You could grow it. Does anybody grow this in their garden? Yeah, it smells so great. Okay, so these are nice big leaves, but I'm just going to take all of that off. And this is...
What kind of mint is there? Because there's so many different kinds.
Yeah, this is just regular
What is...
regular mint. I don't even think it says anything but mint. Yeah, GMO free, organic. But I have seen things called chocolate mint. I don't know if you all have seen that. It is kind of a darker leaf and it smells delicious. We're going to say 3.5 just because I have this little bit here. And we're going to ignore that in the background. Sorry, I thought I turned that down. Okay, and then Italian parsley, we've got 1/2 cup that we want there. I usually just kind of eyeball it. And then let's see here. I just removed the leaves. Yeah, actually, Rosie, do you mind grabbing my phone, please? Probably isn't. Let's hope it's not. Yeah, it's not that alarm that I set, the third one. Okay, so I'm going to just kind of rough chop this because it's going in the food processor, but we want about 1/2 cup of this Italian parsley. Oh, good. Okay, thanks. All right. And this smells great too, very fresh. Some people are not a fan of it. They say it's too grassy, but I don't know. I think if you're not used to using fresh herbs, it does take a little adjusting, but I find that it just adds such nice flavor to something so simple. So that's probably a little more than 1/2 cup. I'll set that aside. Okay, so we have that. What else do we need? So we have our bread, the almonds. Okay, so we're gonna leave those aside, right? The lemon. Okay, so I already washed this. Here's my little microplane zester. I'm gonna add that. And this is another just great fresh smell. Anybody have any lemon trees? Lemon or lime? You do. Oh, nice. No, I have not. Wow. Oh, I bet. Wow. Do they produce quite a bit of lemons too? Oh, that's awesome. I might have to look into that. I bought many years ago a strawberry lemon. They called it they called it a pink lemonade tree. And it had those pink lemons, but it didn't produce fruit for me, so I gave it to a friend, and she had a great green thumb, and she sends me pictures periodically of how well it's doing. And I'm so jealous because I don't live in Laredo anymore, and that's where that tree is now, growing in her mother's backyard. Okay, so just the zest of that. You could save this and reserve it and make a vinaigrette from, adding some fresh lemon juice. And let's see, what else do we need? Just making sure, a pinch of salt. Okay, thank you very much, ladies. A pinch of salt there. Okay, and then we're just gonna chop this up. And you want it kind of coarse, right? Nothing else, okay. So I'm just going to pulse it until I get the consistency that I want. Let me take a peek. Yeah, you could use a regular blender, or like I said, you could even use, just chop it. Because basically you just want to make sure this is a little bit, I mean, you could even stop right there. See how that's nice and coarse, but I still have a big chunk of garlic, so I'm going to go a little bit further. And when you have the nuts in there, it'll also kind of help grind things up. But it takes on this beautiful color. Okay. This big chunk just does not want to disappear. But this is kind of the perfect consistency right here. So I want to take some out for our friend who cannot have nuts. Now, if it is like a severe nut allergy, I can't confirm if that bread was like nut free, but I will set aside a little bit there. And then let me pop in a few more of these nuts because we have a little less now. Okay. Well, we're close to hospital, I think. Okay. Going a little bit more. It smells so great too. Got this beautiful color. Yes. There we go. And that's what we're looking for. So this nice kind of crumbly texture. Oh, there's a little chunk of an almond in there. That's okay if you've got some of those in there like that. Okay. I'm going to just clean up a tad here. So that is our piccata. And then the next thing we're going to do is move on to our dressing, which is kind of like if you've ever had the green salsa at a taco place. It's similar. I didn't add the avocado, but you certainly could. I was also going to add yogurt, but I decided to leave it out since there were so many other ingredients. But I wanted to make something that was kind of light, simple, that complemented everything else. And I love the color green, so this is a very green recipe. Means it's healthy, right? Isn't it funny?
Like adding regular yogurt or
Yeah, you could just use just a plain Greek yogurt. That would work just fine. Okay, let me just move a little bit of this out of the way so you can see what I'm going to do here. And then, okay, I need this wet paper towel for a trick I'm going to show you in a minute here. Okay, I'm going to use this. I have my little stick blender here, my immersion blender that we're going to use to blend everything up. And the base of this is going to be these tomatillos here. For this recipe, I think it was only two. What did I say? Two. But since we've got a big group here, I'm going to add a couple more because I have a whole jalapeno that I can use. So we're going to double it and see how that works out. So these tomatillos have the little husk, right? When you're shopping for these, it's good to look for some that are, this is kind of the perfect one. It has a nice shade of green. It doesn't have any blemishes on it. It feels firm to the touch. Don't go for the ones that are all kind of brown and mushy because it's hard to tell because they have the husk. So I always kind of give them a little, just kind of feel like that to make sure they're not. And then when you open it, they should look like this. They're a little sticky, so I just kind of take a wet paper towel or just run them under some cold water. And then we'll, I want to chop them up a little bit, again, to kind of help my little stick blender. But we'll do 4, and then I'm going to kind of adjust the flavor because the vinegar, we're going to add vinegar, a little bit of oil, some garlic, and salt. Very simple. But I have to tell you, over the weekend, I had fresh basil, and I made some baby potatoes, and I used basil and yogurt, and I think lemon is what I had, and made a great kind of creamy dressing. I think that would go well with this too. Anything like, if you guys know, it's called Green Goddess dressing. Usually has avocado. It's nice and creamy, has garlic, a bunch of other herbs. That would be great on something like this. But this is kind of, we're going to start with this. I didn't want to change things up on you guys at the last minute, but you have options. This is kind of the base recipe. right? Anytime with my recipes, I always say use this as a starting ground, but you can absolutely change it up to your liking, to your taste preferences, all of that. Some people, even if you wanted to add additional flavor, you could char these if you had put them on the grill or just in a pan, a skillet, a dry skillet on the stove, or if you have a comal, right, a burner, you could do that. That would be great. This garlic is pretty pungent, so we're just going to use for this one, instead of 2 whole, or I think it's half a clove of garlic, right? I don't even want to do a whole one because it's pretty strong. So I'm just going to stick with the half for the double recipe because look, that's pretty, it's even pretty big, but we're going to go with it, you guys. And you all like spicy, but I'm going to use the whole thing and we'll see how that works out. Because when I do half, it's just enough for me, but I'm going to take the seeds out as well. And we're going to hope for the best, you guys. Or, you know what we can do? Why don't I do like 3/4? And if it doesn't pass the test, we won't. If it's too spicy, we won't put in the whole thing. Because sometimes jalapenos are tricky like that. And we were just talking about chipotles. And the brand, if you buy the San Marcos brand of chipotles, it's not as spicy. But if you buy the La Costeña, is definitely, you got some spice. So let's start with that, and then we'll add if we need to. What else did I say? A little bit of vinegar and some oil, right? And the salt again. Okay, so we're going to do, I need to plug in my blender. Nope, it's already plugged in. Okay, great. We have the jalapeno, we've got the tomatillos, the garlic. Let's start with 1 teaspoon, just plain white vinegar. You could use any kind. You could use champagne vinegar if you had it. That's always nice. It's a little sweeter. Apple cider vinegar is nice too, but this is just for some tang. Or if you didn't want to do that and you just wanted to use your lemon juice, that would be great too, or lime juice. And then we're going to do a little bit of oil. It's 1/3 cup, I said. All right. We're probably going to do a little bit more because I added extra. Let me measure out. We'll start with 1/3. That's about 1/3 cup there. Okay. And a little pinch of salt. And away we go. Spicy, that jalapeno is spicy just with half. I can smell it. We might just stick with half a jalapeno. Wow. I might have Rosie come and finish this for me so I can drink some water. Because that is spicy. And that's only half. Can you just hold that down? Yes. Hang on to the cup there. While I grab some water and mix for a little bit longer. Okay, so as she's doing that, I'm going to add in our oil slowly here. Keep going. Keep going, Rosie. Oh, I don't have a spoon. Shoot. Okay, how's that work? Let's stop and then let's just give it. It's going to be kind of loose, even though it's got the oil in it, but it's kind of nice and light.
It smells so good.
It's very tangy. So let's add a little more salt. Okay, definitely not any more jalapeno. And just a tad more oil. So it's a very tangy dressing because the tomatillos are straight raw. It has nice garlic flavor. Oh, Perfect. Okay, and that is it. So this is just kind of a simple, just the base. Like I said, if you wanted to add something to kind of make it thicker and creamier, you could do a little bit of yogurt, or even an avocado would be great, because that is also one of those delicious foods that's good for brain health, right? Because of all the omegas, healthy fats. Okay, so let me clean up a little bit here so you can see me assemble this, and then we're going to move on to our nutrition. Thank you, Rosie, my lovely assistant Rosie. A couple things to just assemble here. So additional things that we're going to top this asparagus with are some Roma tomatoes. And it's a spring salad, but kind of technically could also be a summer salad. You know, all of this stuff you could easily do on the grill, which I think would be great. I like to just lightly drizzle the asparagus with some oil and just sprinkle it with salt and pepper. But I would say, you know, something simple like this, platter it up. Just like so. I did bring knives for you all so you can cut through this beautiful asparagus. That one's kind of backwards. And it has been chilled, but like I said, you could also do this warm. I think that would be delicious. I just want to make sure I don't put the raw one in here, because that would be super crunchy. I had a friend who would always take the ends, because like, oh, that's what I wanted to show you too. Here they are. So you can see like the ends are not dried out. They're still kind of moist. But save these, because usually people will say, how do you take out the part that's too fibrous? You can just snap it, but sometimes it's way up here and you end up with just like this much asparagus. So I just use my knife, but this you could cook down almost into a pulp and then strain it and use it to make a nice cream soup. So if it's asparagus season and you're going through a lot and you're like, I really hate to lose this, just cook this down in a little bit of water and then pass it through just like a strainer, and you'll have a nice, beautiful base for a cream soup. You could add cream, you could add coconut milk to it, like kind of play with that, because again, you know me, don't like to waste anything. Okay, so we have our beautiful asparagus, tomatoes that I have already washed, and I just keep it simple. I just cut them into quarters. Let's see. Sorry, still got some parsley on there here. And it's, I guess, kind of tomato season. God, I still smell that jalapeno. Okay. These are some pretty big Roma tomatoes. I don't know if you all have seen at HEB recently. They're a little spendy, but they are beautifully packaged Roma tomatoes. And they're like what Roma tomatoes should look like. They're super red. They're a little bit smaller, for maybe like $4 in a little container. I was tempted to get those, but these will work just fine too. And I just kind of place them along, just kind of tuck them in there. I'll put all these on here. So that's looking pretty colorful. That's always a thing too, right? Like, we eat with our eyes, so we want to make sure that we're adding some nice contrasting color. So we've got the red and the green here. It looks very Italian, even though I said it was Spanish. Okay, I'm gonna chop up our eggs. 4 hard-boiled eggs, but I did a couple extra since we've got a few more folks in class. Same thing, I'll just quarter that up. But look at these egg yolks. I'm gonna cut this one so you can see how perfect. This is what you want, right? No green rings. You've 14 got minutes. 14 minutes. 14 minutes. So this is like a beautiful salad that you could see displayed at a deli, but you could also make it at home for the summer. And it has a little bit of protein, right, from the hard-boiled egg. You've got all these great vitamins from, if you're fans of asparagus, and the tomato. That looks beautiful. Let's do some more. And then a couple other things we're going to add just because I like them. And you could add even on the top some crushed almonds because you have some, right, already. But we're going to add some black olives, or any kind of olive really that you like. And then we sprinkle it with the piccata and drizzle it with the dressing. Or maybe I'll do the dressing first and then the piccata. Let's see. this looks. It's getting kind of packed, but I want to make sure everybody gets a little of everything. It's kind of a fun salad. I'll show this to our friends at home in a second here. Put some olives on. These are just regular black olives that I found at the grocery store, but you could, like I said, use any kind that you like. I like to cut them in half just for different texture. Let's see here. That way you've got a little more. Now it's coming together. You got a couple more colors coming aboard here. Is anybody a fan of like, do you guys know what a niçoise salad is? Mm-hmm. It's a really nice salad that has like baby potatoes, boiled baby potatoes, some kind of seafood, so usually like tuna. You could use canned tuna. It has maybe, you could do asparagus or blanched green beans. What else does it have? Olives? Any kind of olive, and just like a nice light vinaigrette. So these are my favorite kinds of salads to make and to enjoy because I know I'm getting my greens. I'm just kind of getting them in a different way, right? It's not the typical lettuce, green leafy lettuce kind of salad. This looks great. Okay. All right, that looks good. And then we want a little extra salt, right? There's not really anything in there except for the salt that was used when we cook the asparagus, but our salt is going to come from our Parmesan cheese, and you could use any kind, but this is that nice, just kind of, yeah, the shaved, yes. So that gives it an extra touch of elegance, right? We just want to really make it look pretty. Fancy. It looks fancy, but really all these ingredients you can find at your regular grocery store. So I'm going to hold that up just a bit so that our friends at home can see that. And this is, you know, super simple, but what we're missing is our beautiful piccata, which I'm going to, because we want to make sure our friend has some. Rosie, sorry. Can you get me a plate and I'll set aside a little bit for our friend who cannot have the nuts. Yes. But the rest we will put on there. So this is our nice topping. That looks great. I love the smell of this. The smell and the color, and then a little bit of that dressing. And that is it. Awesome. Okay, so let me get just a little bit here. Egg. Okay. Now we're going to do. Ooh, it's nice and thick. Okay.
It is. A little drizzle
of that. And a lot of that. This is my favorite part. The bread. Okay. All right. Voila. Okay, so I'm going to just give this a nice drizzle here. What I forgot to do first, since I already started loading this, but I do like to kind of drizzle the asparagus too with a little oil. You could even do it on the top too. Just a tad like that. A little sprinkle of salt. And then the piccata. Okay, so different kind of salad. Delicious, equally delicious. I would just eat this. And if you have extra piccata, I mean, this goes great on anything, really. What else did I use it for? I think I used it when I had, I made like a tuna sandwich and I put some on top of that. Like other salads I was eating in the week, I'm like, oh, that'd be great on that. I had like a grain salad. I threw some of this in there. But yeah, so, okay, so that is that. I'm going to hand this over to Miss Rosie so that she can dish this out and you all can enjoy, but that's pretty much what we're looking at. All right, if you want, here are the tongs. I've got plates. I have knives and forks there.
So what are they going to have?
They're going to eat, yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Yes, it has dressing, but if you all would like more, I'm going to hand this over to Miss Rosie. And we are going to move on to the last of our conversation about these archetype diets, which I thought, for those of you who didn't join us in the beginning, we were talking about kind of how certain personality types approach food, right? Their relationships with food. And so we had talked about two different archetypes, the nurturer and the Wonder Woman. And so this week we wanted to wrap it up with the other two. So the first one, let's start with the femme fatale. So we have the femme fatale and the ethereal. So again, these are based on a book called The Archetype Diet by Dana James. She's a nutritionist, functional medicine practitioner, and wrote this book, which I found kind of fascinating. So the femme fatale, their belief system, or kind of how they gather their worth, is beauty gets you what you want. And so you know, we may know people like that. We may be one of those people. We may have a part of our personality that is like that. But I just thought it was cool how she broke down the different categories. So career choices, typically models, actresses, right? Physical appearance is big. Their characteristics are they're strong, they're powerful, they're sexy, they draw people in with their beauty, they're very magnetic, radiant, and beautiful. Something interesting about them, though, so she feels, the femme fatale feels feels secure in her beauty, and also kind of like, for example, if she is the prettiest in the room, she'll feel more confident. If she's not, she'll kind of shrink a little bit. So they can become fixated on their imperfections. When she doesn't feel beautiful, she kind of has the opposite. So this particular personality is kind of like almost a little Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde, right? Because when she's feeling beautiful and radiant and magnificent, she's all in. Everybody wants to be her, be drawn to her. But if she doesn't feel that and places so much on her looks, she can kind of shrink a little bit. So therefore, when it comes to eating behavior, food is also either good or bad, kind of those two very distinct sides of the coin. So enjoys the pleasure and sensuality of food. She's very tactile and savors like every morsel of food. But when she's out of balance, she can be overly restrictive or binge eat. And so the opposite and just kind of to the extreme. Her behavior with food will mirror her obsession with her looks. So she can be fixated on healthy food. Have you all ever heard of the word orthorexia?
No.
So that was a new one for me. About a year ago, there was an author that I was reading about who mentioned this, and it is something in the culture, a lot of diet culture, where people become extremely obsessed with just eating healthy and healthy food. So you'll see a lot of like influencers, what I eat in a day, those kinds of reels where it's like, oh my God, like just eat, you know, just move your body. And yes, so it's that there is actually a term for that. So this particular body type can be like that. And they can feel shame and then start to binge even more, which then they'll pull into sort of this restriction mentality of eating. And so that's not great either. They're completely petrified of gaining weight because that's their source of self-worth, right? Their looks. And so they can be one of those that yo-yos back and forth, depending on if they're restricting food to lose weight or overeating out of shame and frustration. This particular body type physically might have too much cortisol from the stress of things, and insulin or estrogen, and so they can take on kind of different body shapes depending on whether they're eating too much or eating too little. So the prescription for this particular body type and this particular personality is to get their carbs into balance. So improving daily eating, like don't skip meals, especially don't skip breakfast, and include proteins. Don't skip any snacks. Make sure you have like balanced meals throughout the day because the body needs more food to maintain weight or lose weight if that's what they're looking for. But otherwise, it's going to signal to the body that food is scarce, and so the body's going to want to hold on to that extra weight, and the metabolism will be affected. So here are some of the things that for this particular personality type will help them remain balanced. Orange. So orange fruits and vegetables like carrots, bell peppers, apricots, any kind of citrus that are orange. Animal protein, seafood, eggs, poultry. Red meat is good because we need proteins for this particular type. Starchy carbs at lunch and dinner. Beauty boosting snacks, so things like fresh berries like raspberries, a turmeric almond milk latte. That sounds pretty good to me too. Anything like nuts and seeds, the red meat again. This particular body type can have grains, legumes, and starchy vegetables. So I like that, she kind of has this prescription for the different types. And I think, there might be something to it if you see physically this is kind of how the body responds. Foods to keep to a minimum: dairy, gluten, soy, and sweets. And then the type of exercise for this particular type is anything that's like burning body fat, sculpting muscles, and connecting with the body so that they're more centered in the body, not necessarily with their physical appearance, because that's kind of their cross to bear, right? Like we want them to sort of feel more centered and grounded in their body. So things like dance, expressing their themselves through dance, Pilates, swimming, yoga, and then just small to medium weights. So anybody know a femme fatale in their life? Yes. Anybody consider themselves a femme fatale? Okay. Okay, so this last type is probably one of my favorites because I tend to relate a lot to, is the ethereal. And their belief system is my intuition is my gift. So a lot of artists, creative types fall into the category of ethereal. So their characteristics tend to be more spiritual and sensitive, much more feminine and whimsical, very creative and highly attuned to their surroundings. You can't lie to an ethereal because they'll sense it. They're very empathetic. They pick up on a lot. They've historically been considered eccentric or woo-woo. And they believe that something intangible is guiding them or supporting them. So they also see underlying harmony as the structure of the universe. And so they don't understand why people argue, fight, or engage in conflict. They want everything to just be, everybody's status quo. Let's all get along and love each other, right? That's always my motto. So they can be very sensitive. They can absorb other people's emotions, and they feel constrained when there's too much structure or logic. Are you laughing because you relate, or?
Is it spicy or what?
It's a little
No,
spicy.
I just dropped it on my leg.
Oh, we had an asparagus drop. Okay. No, you're good. Okay, so they may struggle with anxiety, feel a little anxious or spacey and sensitive, and have some digestive issues from this compressed feeling if there's too much structure. So their eating behavior can be very sensitive to food as well. So they're the types who are prone to multiple food allergies. And now I'm laughing because this is me. Multiple food allergies, and because they're just so much more attuned to kind of the frequency of things, right? Their physical body rejects chemicals. They may be so absorbed in what they're creating that they forget to eat, and it can trigger blood sugar imbalances and anxiety. And they really like clean eating or healthy food to stay connected. They're naturally lean. That does not apply to me. And doesn't gain weight easily. But if they feel depressed or anxious or highly sensitive, then they compensate by eating too many refined carbs, which wreaks havoc then with their whole metabolism, making them appear skinny fat, not overweight. But I thought this was kind of funny, carrying a thin layer of pinchable fat around their thin muscles. They typically suffer from low estrogen and out of balance microbiome because of just the sensitivities and just feeling, everything. So the food prescription for this type is something natural, right? They're naturally lean, kind of willowy. So something that can be processed a little bit more efficiently to regulate their insulin and their thyroid. If this person does gain weight, it's usually due to they're eating too much or consuming too much starchy or sugary foods. And that's often to not have to deal with emotional stuff or the energy of something that's kind of too hard to comprehend. So they'll compensate by choosing those foods. I ate cookies for dinner, for example, the other day. It was a long week. But foods that rebalance the ethereal are cooked vegetables, so things that are a little more processed and easy to digest, so more grounding and easier on the digestive system. Root vegetables, so white or purple fruits for this particular type, that color, provides clarity for intuition, because again, this person is highly attuned to things like that. can have some carbs, but don't like mix two at the same time. Try to space that out. Red meat, soy, and dairy to kind of help increase the low estrogen levels, and then snacking on things like nuts, fermented foods, the probiotics, the prebiotics, all that to kind of keep the gut in check and keep it healthy is good. Foods that should be kept to a minimum. There was only one on this list, carbs too, but sweets is a big one. Types of exercise, things like TRX, bar, Pilates, hiking, surfing, if you're into that, swimming, yoga, and anything outdoors to connect with nature, because that's a big thing for this type. So that, my friends, wraps up our lesson. Any kind of thoughts, questions about the recipe, about what we talked about today?
This one totally hit home with me.
Did it, the ethereal. Okay, so you identify.
100%.
Yeah. I think a lot of women have a lot of those characteristics. Very sensitive, in tune to a lot of the things that are happening around us, right? Because we're just kind of structured that way. We're caretakers, we're caregivers. We're just more highly sensitive to those things. And I think that's a good thing, but it's also kind of our cross to bear because we absorb so much of that. And we need to remember to take time to take care of ourselves if that's what you identify with. And, periodically checking, like, am I skipping meals? How can I help and make sure that maybe I have some snacks kind of scattered around in my office, at work, or at home? I've got a little bin. Actually, I do have a little bin for snacks, just because you have to make sure you maintain your level of nutrition. Mm-hmm.
On here it says that you should eat fermented foods. Like, what? Can you give me more examples?
Yeah.
Of fermented foods?
So exactly. So yogurt is a good one. Yeah. So yogurt is a good one. Anything that has the good bacteria, it has all the lactobacillus, right? Kombucha, if you're a fan of like drinking your probiotics, try the different ones, because I have tried so many. I can't do a lot of caffeine, and sometimes they have black or green tea, but some are herbal and they have great taste. You could even kimchi, if you love kimchi. I love it. It's a little spicy, but so for some people who don't like the spice, but kimchi is great too. What's another one that I also do? Sauerkraut. Yeah, we were talking about that as well. Sauerkraut is delicious. I like putting it in soups. You could bake it into a casserole even, just if you're kind of offended by the smell, just like with kimchi, right? But anything like that has those natural, you can even buy now kimchi and sauerkrauts, like even Kraft, they call it like Kraft. Sauerkrauts that have like carrots and all sorts of other dill. I've seen one that's like that, and it has great flavor. But anything that'll kind of add that additional good bacteria to your gut to keep you in check is good. And you could also supplement, but I would go to like a reputable, like the Cost, is it Cost Plus? What's the name of the nutrition store that's right around the corner here? Cost Plus, yeah. They'll often give you good advice about the brands that have, and also the ones to store, how to store them, because sometimes you can order them online, but those things are alive and you want them to be alive so they can work well in your gut. So yeah, stores like that have great information and great products too. But yeah, good, keeping your microbiome in check is a good thing. Anything else, you guys?
Yeah, I wanted to know, what was the author? Your favorite author?
Oh, my favorite. Kenji Lopez Alt is the name of the gentleman. Kenji Lopez Alt, ALT. He actually, I think, might have a new book coming out. But he's written a whole book on like wok cooking. He had a book that came out called The Food Lab that basically he kind of went through the education of just kind of a background in science originally. And so he kind of brings that to his curiosity about food. But he worked for many years in like a test kitchen, understanding how food works. And so it's been really cool to see all of his books and his advice. There's also a website called Serious Eats that he used to be involved with. That's still out there. Serious Eats has great recipes, and any kind of technique questions that you are curious about, it's good for that as well. All right, ladies, well, that wraps it up. Folks at home, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back again. I think I'm back in August, but thanks for being here.
Thank you.